my Renegades, welcome back. It is time for some Renegade Society radio show. And we have a very special guest today. I'm super excited. Before I introduce them, I would like to just give everybody a few. So we do have the Alice is Missing RPG out now. And we also have the Altered Carbon RPG as well, available for pre-order. So you can check that out. Don't delay. You definitely want to check that out today. Or you can also check in with us online on the Renegade Game Studios web store to make sure you don't miss out on either of these amazing RPGs. And then we also have the Duel of Wands Kids on Brooms card game. And that's a game designed by Luke Mensch, and Doug Lewandowski, with art by Heather Vaughn. And it's playable actually with your Kids on Brooms RPG campaign. So you can actually use it to resolve debates in the game, resolve conflict that way, or you can play it as a standalone 2-player game. And then we also are going to be doing continuing streams on Twitch, and we'll have tons of content on our YouTube, so definitely check that out, and you can check in with us here for our up-to-date streaming schedule. And today we're going to be giving away a copy of Viscounts of the West Kingdom. So there will be a code word later that I will be giving to you. And I also would like to, with that, introduce our guest. So we have the very amazing, very talented Shem Phillips with us here today. Hi, Shem.
Hey, how you going?
Yeah, hello. And I also just wanted to remind everybody as well, if you have any questions for Shem, you can definitely type those in the chat now. We will be getting to them later, but as they come up, just type them in and then we'll get to you before we close out. So yeah, Shem, tell us about you. Tell us who you are, what you do, where we can find you. And I mean, although I'm sure everyone already knows who you are because you are so iconic, but yes, tell us about you.
I don't know. I'm just some guy from New Zealand, I think. I guess I'm the kind of the face behind Garphill Games. Been making games for, gosh, I don't know, 12 years or so now. In the last, I guess, 3 or 4 years with Sam McDonald and the West Kingdom series and other ones. So yeah, I started out playing games as a kid, like probably most people in the hobby. And I actually got into game design before I even knew about modern board games. So I basically introduced to this hobby by designing a game and then finding out that it wasn't very good and then making good games. Kind of where I got started.
That's so crazy. That's so backwards from how most people, I feel like, get into the hobby. You started with design and then you worked your way backwards, which I like.
Yeah.
What was your, when you were growing up playing games and you were sort of playing them, but playing different ones? Were you still playing board games, I assume, but like more classic board games?
Yeah, so I grew up with Cluedo or Clue, Scrabble, Monopoly.
Yeah.
We played lots of card games and lots of jigsaw puzzles.
Okay, cool.
That kind of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, Clue is actually one of my favorite games. So and still is today. I love that game. So good. And when it comes to sort of bridging that gap between being like, I'm playing these awesome classic games, now I'm going to make a game. How did that happen? Was there were you just playing so many classic games? You're like, we need to make something new. And then people were like, oh, by the way, there's a whole other world. How did that happen?
I think I guess I'm just a creative person. So I wanted to make my own game because I like music. So I want to make my own music. So the same kind of thing, I guess, applied.
Cool.
So I just set out to make this simple kind of roll and move style family game. And then, I think through that, a friend of mine's like, oh, have you played Catan? And then they introduced me to that. I rushed out and bought Carcassonne and Family Business and then got introduced to a local convention and then just kept playing tons and tons of these new games that we now love.
That's awesome. I love that. When it comes to music, what do you most love doing with music when it comes to creating that content?
I've been playing bass and guitar since I was a teenager.
Sick.
Very much into the sort of punk and hardcore music scene. Not so much now. I'm getting older, and we did a show actually with Sam McDonald on drums.
That's awesome.
I think after the first song, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm puffing and it's just too old. But I still love the music.
Yeah, music can be very physically draining. So I feel you there. And when it comes to even going beyond sort of game design, you've also been really involved, it seems, in production as well of games. So not just designing them, but actually producing them. What do you think has been like sort of your favorite moment or your favorite like accomplishment from sort of that side of it? Or even in design, is there something that you found has really stood out to you to be like, I'm so proud of this, or I really loved this?
I think from a production point of view, there's always like little moments where I do something new. So we had like an Explorers of the North Sea having the little 3D printed, not 3D printed, but 3D ships. That was kind of, for me at least, it's a big step. We don't do minis or anything.
Yeah.
But then in Bethel Woods, we had little sculpted miniatures. And then now in Viscounts with the big 3D castle in the middle, just kind of taking extra steps to, I guess, slightly up our the quality or the production value, while still keeping our very like cardboard and wood kind of Euro focus to our games as well.
Yeah, I love that. Were the boats, when you were sort of working with those, are they like, can you like load them up with things?
Yeah, so I started out with just like cardboard folded little boats.
Yeah.
You put like chickens and pigs and stuff on them, and your Vikings sail around. So I actually got to design the ship and then get it made through Panda and actually use them tactically. Feels really cool. Yeah,
that's so cool. Yeah, that's like that reminds me of in Black Fleet. I don't know if you've played that game. Yeah, but yeah, the sort of like delivery and you're going around on the boats. I think that was one of the first games for me that I played that I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like I have this stuff and it's on my little boat. I don't know why it is, but when you have stuff like that in games, it almost gives you more ownership over your like pieces.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
That's really cool. And that's and are you thinking of integrating that like more even into the new games that you are working on, or do you want to honor more of the classic style? How do you feel about that?
I think we'll still very much have a classic style to most of our games. So you probably won't see too many big minis or things in our games. But I think just trying to think outside the box a little bit, especially now that plastics are a lot more like easy to use, but we want to do them in our own kind of style of not overproduced, but just clean lines and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Nice. So like kind of more keeping it simplistic, where it's like you have a few pieces that are like, wow, and then everything else is nice and classic. I think that also highlights those pieces when you introduce them too, because it's like they're the little bits of wow that you add in. Yeah, that's cool. And when it comes to in the North Sea and the West Kingdom sort of worlds that we've explored here, they have just blown up in terms of just people like, and I feel like every gamer that I also meet in just even my life has played one or both and loves them. Like I don't think I found anyone that doesn't like them. So
they're out there, don't worry.
I'm sure. I mean, every game has some naysayers. That is how it goes. And not every game is for everybody.
Exactly.
But everyone that I know, and like people even myself, like I'm not a big Euro gamer. I do love Carcassonne though. But even playing Raiders of the North Sea, the first time I played it, I think it's also because of the story that's integrated into it too. Like you really kind of feel like you're building this whole like epic journey. So you kind of, it's very story integrated, which I really love. But when it comes to these two worlds, do you find that you have a favorite game from them? And if you do have a favorite game, why do you love that? Does it have to do with the story or the design, or is it more about like the mechanics or something else entirely?
So, I mean, Raiders is definitely the popular one from the North Sea. That's no doubt. But I think I'll give some love to Explorers. I think it kind of, I really enjoy tile placement games like Carcassonne. So it kind of pays tribute a bit to, I guess, to myself, how I discovered games and what I still enjoy. I love set collection, love tile placement, but also love multi-use cards, which is why you see a lot in our games. So I'll say Explorers for that one. For the West Kingdom, that's really tough because we're still working on expansions. So like which one we like the most kind of changes quite a bit depending on the week. But
what's like your current crush for that?
Current
trilogy?
crush.
Yeah.
That's even still tough. Maybe Viscounts.
Viscounts.
I think there's still a lot of things I haven't explored in the design. It's funny to say because we designed it, but design mechanisms that we don't know all the strategies. We know the balance is there, but we don't know all the possible kind of cool, crazy strategies you can pull off. Architecture is like that a lot as well. It's very sandboxy. So still discovering the games, which is fun for us.
Yeah, that is fun. I feel like that also tells you when you've really done a good job on making a strategy game that is so like in depth and is so complex. Because with strategy games, the thing that you're always trying to figure out is like, how many times can someone play this and still like be intrigued and still be discovering?
Yeah.
Because it sounds like you're similar to me in the sense, and I think a lot of strategy gamers, in the sense that when we play these games, we're always kind of looking to explore everyone at the table a little bit in terms of like, what's everyone going to do and how are we going to react, but also our own minds and our own way that we like think through things.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. It's really cool when you've also like, you know, had a hand in designing and doing all these things. Then you're still playing the game and you're like, well, I'm still finding new stuff. That's exciting to me, I think.
Yeah.
Are you thinking of doing any other trilogies, by the way? Or are you thinking more of like moving away from that? Or what does that mean for you to have like games that are kind of all in a world and sort of building on it and also building on each other, since a lot of them like work together?
We're definitely doing other trilogies, that's for sure, but also other things as well. So Sam and I are already most of the way through the design of the first Game in the South trilogy, which will come out next year, hopefully. So that's exciting. So that's like the next kind of 7 years of our lives booked for making games and trilogies. But we'll do more with the same kind of aesthetic that you've seen in Raiders of Scythia and Hadrian's Wall. So I've got a solo game I'm working on for that kind of series. They're not a trilogy, but they're kind of very similar look. And then we also have the Circadians universe, which we're expanding this year as well with part 2 and an expansion for part 1. So we really enjoy like kind of staying in one world or 3 worlds, I guess, and just exploring the kind of the design space for those games. It's a lot of fun for us. And it gives us kind of focus as designers, not just to just pull out random ideas, but to really choose like, we're going to focus on this thing right now and research that as much as we can. So it's exciting for us and it's fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. I feel like as well, the worlds that you do explore, because a lot of them, because they're also like historically tied, you can tell that there is research in what you are doing. Is there anything that sort of guides you to like which area of history or like which time period or region that you want to explore? Or how does that come about?
So the medieval ones are pretty much set because we know like the 4 kind of areas that we're focusing on. So that's quite easy, except for like diving into more depth into each one. So we've been doing tons of research into the South to find out what they were doing at the time and what's the focus going to be for the trilogy. But for the other games like Scythia and Hadrian's Wall, I mean, Hadrian's Wall was brought to me by Bobby. So he had the theme already and the name. Yeah. With Scythia, for that one, I was like, well, I want to make a kind of a reimagined version of Raiders of the North Sea. So who else raided? You know, that was my starting point. So
yeah, that's so cool.
And discovered the Scythians. So
yeah, and that's super cool. And I feel like actually the Scythians, Raiders of Scythia was my introduction to that historical like world. So it's cool when you play a game and then you're like, oh, now I want to like read and learn more about this because like I don't really know about this. That education element for me with the history is like really neat. I also really love history. So I assume you love history as well.
Yeah, it's funny. Our games are in history, but like I'm not a huge history buff, and I honestly probably don't focus enough on the accuracy, as some people might point out. But I just love the setting, like the sword and shield, kind of an ancient to medieval vibe. Just something about it just appeals to me as a gamer, I think.
Yeah. So like that time period. Have you ever thought about doing anything that's sort of like in that realm, but more like fantasy or like more in a fictional setting, like sort of like a sword and fantasy with like magic or anything like that?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not huge into that kind of thing. I love sci-fi, but I do love like the kind of World of Warcraft vibe kind of for movies and stuff. So I like that high fantasy, but I'm not sure I know enough about it to really explore it as a designer.
I don't know.
I haven't played a lot of games in that kind of genre, so who knows? Yeah, I know that Miko, the artist, he's always asking me like, can we do a dragon next? Can we do this next? You know.
So Miko's down if that's a thing you want to explore. You have that. That's awesome. And before we continue on, I'm going to actually drop this code word for people that are ready for that. So the code word for our giveaway today, which is Viscounts of the West Kingdom, which Shem was just saying is his favorite right now in the revolving favorites of the West Kingdom, is going to be, our code word is Valhalla, which I picked just because because I really like Raiders of the North Sea, even though we're not giving that away. But there you go. So you can, Desiree will have a link for you in the chat, and then you can enter in that word Valhalla. And hopefully you get all the L's right, but I'm sure if you don't, we'll be kind to you anyways. And continuing on from that, when it comes to even the level of production and design that goes into the games, these games also like all just look so cohesive together in the sets, but then they also are just so clean in the design, which like kudos, because that I feel like is not easy to do at all. You're welcome. But I'm also wondering, I also noticed before, like with these designs, because they're so great and they look amazing, you've also done things like for the Shipwrights Kickstarter, you had t-shirts for it that were like limited edition. Do you have any other desire to do more like merch around the games just because they do look so good? Or like what are your plans there? Or do you have any plans?
I'm actually wearing a Scythian t-shirt right now.
Yeah.
We do have some designs on, I think it's boardgamerags.com.
Oh, okay,
so
cool.
There's a kind of on-demand printing service. I used to actually work as a printer for 6 years before I started going full-time with Garphill Games. So I printed t-shirts for a living for 6 years. So that's why I had the ones in Shipwrights.
Yeah.
But we've looked into things like collectible figures for our games. So not actually game components, but I actually do have some up on the wall.
Oh yeah.
You probably can't see them, but
in the back there. Oh yeah.
Hard to see. There's a big Lara Croft one, but to the right of that, there's two Viking figures.
That's super cool.
But it's more about figuring out the demand and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But we may look at doing that kind of stuff like merch or collectibles or whatever in the future. But,
yeah. Let us know in the chat, friends, if you want those collectibles, because I feel like I want some collectibles and I want more shirts. I'm gonna have to check that out after, because there's a weird thing with board games where it's like you can be part of all these other fandoms and you can have all this merch about like all the things you love from the fandoms, your favorite characters, your favorite movies, your favorite books. And when it comes to board games, I feel like we're like kind of the hobby that we have lots of board games, but it's like, what if I want to wear a shirt to celebrate my board game? What if I want like a cool board game hat? Like there's not a lot of that. So yeah, so that's cool. And it's cool that also it kind of plays in to just your experience before. Is there anything in terms of like stuff that you would want to do with the games with merch outside of what you're already kind of planning? Or do you feel like that's it for now?
I think if we do, it'll be more of like a service to fans. So like things that people really want, rather than just trying to like do like coffee cups and badges and things. There'll be like actual cool things that people want. So we're not looking to just like make products to sell, but actually to do things that people genuinely want to have as a fan. So we'll see. Let us know.
Yeah, I like that. I think even with the shirts and stuff like that, I definitely think there's going to be a lot of people that want that. I will buy shirts. I will buy shirts and I will buy collectibles because I have like all the amiibos too from like Nintendo. And I feel like amiibos, although you can use them in game, they're really not for that. You literally just buy them to have the figures. But yeah. When it comes as well to that visual element of the game design, everything is so intricate and like I was saying, interwoven through all of these worlds and all of the trilogies. When it comes to other games that you're working on or that you're designing, how does that come into play there? Like, because when we look at things like, when we look at like other games that you've worked on, like Noctiluca and stuff like that, it's also beautiful, like beautiful. And how important is that sort of element of design to you from a visual standpoint, and how involved are you in that process?
So kudos to Z-Man for that one. They did everything on the actual visuals of Noctiluca. But that's hugely important to me as a gamer. I just love like the visual element. So I think I remember hearing a podcast a few years back about like the 4 kind of things that people want out of games. There's the thinkiness, there's the tactile, there's the visual, and then there's something else, interaction, like the presence at the table. So for me, it's all about like the thinkiness and the visuals. Those are the things that I love the most and kind of need from games when I play them. So if my brain is burning and things look pretty on the board, on the table, then I'm happy. I don't need too much interaction. I don't need too much of the tactical moving around of things, tactile thing. But yeah, so all our games, I want them to look amazing. So yeah, big part of it. I mean, even like when I'm first starting out with a new design, we're often thinking, what's the table presence going to be for this game, like before we design the game. So it's a big part for us.
That's great. Yeah. And I think kudos to you, because I think you do a really good job of bringing that element to it. And it is a game. All the games are kind of games that you walk past when they're at a table and people are like, oh, what is this? What are you playing over here? And that's the thing that I love about, I mean, this is the thing I miss about conventions, is that sense of like, you just walk around a hall where like everyone's playing games and there is kind of this visual draw to a lot of things. And I also love the visual drawn element. And how it's built in, like a lot of it is really well built in, I think, in terms of what it is that we're doing at the game. Because you can have a game that's pretty, like you can have a game like, what was I going to say? What's the one with the tiles? Oh, that doesn't help any of us.
It narrows it down for sure.
The one with the tiles in it won Spiel des Jahres a few years ago. And it's really pretty. And someone in the chat will know what I'm talking about, I'm sure.
Or no.
It was, no, I can't remember it now for the life of me. There's been like 3 other versions of it, and they're like little tiles. The stained glass one, you wanted to eat them a while ago.
Azul. Yeah. Azul.
Yeah, Azul. Yeah, thank you. Azul. And Azul has this very like visually, it's really nice. But the one thing about that game that I feel is that the visuals are pretty, but it's not really integrated into anything that's going on. Like we're laying tiles, but it's not integrated into the story. Whereas a lot of the other games that I've played that you've worked on or designed have visual elements that also integrate into like the strategy and what we're doing here, which is cool.
It's kind of adding the intuition to a game so that you just know why you need that tile for that thing. And
Yeah. And then you also feel good when you get it because it like completes this like pretty thing. And you're like, oh, I just like made this really nice looking, this feels good. Set collection in that way is also very, I think, key for visuals for me. So that's cool. And when it comes to games that you like to play, so you started out with classics and then you designed games and then you started getting integrated into this whole world of modern gaming. Is there anything for you that's really stood out that you've really been like, wow, I love this game?
So more recently, games like Underwater Cities have really stood out. I've been thrashing Calico for the last week, which is amazing. That's because it's just so simple. Yet, like my brain just hurts just sitting there playing it. Any game that I kind of play that I think, I would have published this. Those are the ones that really like Great Western Trail, Sulkin, that kind of stuff. Games that just like, really tick the boxes for me as a player. I think the ones that I like the most.
Yeah, Calico is really good. Calico is
so good.
That's really cool. And when it comes to classic games, were there any that ticked all those boxes for you? Because I feel like classic games kind of like, I don't know, they kind of have a different thing going on than what we have in modern gaming. Was there any though that you played that you were like, oh, this is what I like, and then you played a modern game and you're like, oh, that's why I liked that.
Yeah, I think Cluedo is one that was I like clung to as a kid the most. I think just the deduction element was like, well, this is so cool. You can like figure it out and solve the crime, that's fun. But I still enjoy Scrabble as well, just because it's like, it's a puzzle to try and solve, and even if you're not very good at words, you can still play the area control and figure out the best points you can get. So, yeah.
Are there any puzzle games that you've ever thought like, oh, I'd like to really make a puzzle game? Just because most of your games do tend to be more about the strategy element, but more from a sense of like, these are the things that I'm looking for, as opposed to like, I need to solve this like mystery or anything like that.
I would love to. But it's just like, it's the kind of the narrative driven games I really enjoy, but I don't know if I'm that kind of designer. I think my happy place is like making kind of mechanically driven games that, make you burn your brain a little bit. Who knows?
Yeah, burning your brain though is always a good feeling. You also have the new game coming out, Shelfie Stacker, which is all about organizing your games, which I love as someone who My games are a mess, as anyone will tell you if they've ever been to my house. They're like all over. I have like so many shelves, and it's people come in and think, oh, I see all your games. And I'm like, that's like 1/5 of the collection, and they're all hiding in places. Are there any games that you've really loved that you feel like are going to have like a little like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and not be obviously exactly, but are there any in there that you're like, oh, this is kind of reminds me of this game?
In Shelfie Stacker.
Yeah.
So all the art in that game was done by Claire and Paul Tobin. So I think all the kind of little goofy names that you see is mainly Paul working his magic. Like he's done little spins on lots of popular games. So I think there's like, what was the one? There's like Orcs and Elves.
Cute.
There's like Big World rather than Small World. So little kind of things like that he's hidden throughout the game. So they can be quite fun to discover, I think, as you play the game, because they're all over it. They're like hidden on certain cards and tiles and all sorts.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the artwork for that, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I need this game. Like once again, of course, I'm looking at it and I'm like, visually, this is something that I need in my life, just from that standpoint. So I'm excited to check that one out. And speaking of new titles, so Shelfie Stacker will be coming. When is that coming, or is that out now?
That is finished production. I think they're releasing it maybe March, April. So
March or April. Yeah. That's going to be exciting. But you also have another new game that was like just announced today and is available for pre-order. And that's through Garphill Games. We're also selling it as well. We have it available for pre-order right now because it's not out yet. But could you tell us a bit more about that? That's called Hadrian's Wall, which I'm super excited about. Can you tell us a little bit more about sort of what that game's going to be like, and also the historical significance of that game?
Yeah, so this game was designed by a friend of mine who actually lives about 5 minutes down the road. British guy living in New Zealand for the last few years. So he's walked Hadrian's Wall. He knows it well. And he's part of my kind of local playing group and also design group. So he brought along this prototype to our little meetup, and I just straight up said to him, I would publish this. This is a Garphill kind of game with the setting, obviously, and also the mechanisms. It's going to give you kind of a Paladins vibe from playing it, but it plays in about an hour, and it's for 1 to 6 players, pen and paper style, flip and fill. So it's very crunchy, lots of kind of combo-tastic things where you're doing this, gives me that, like the Gone Sean Clever kind of feel. But yeah, it's very, very, it's probably medium to heavyweight game, so it's gonna tickle your brain a bit.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that sounds really good. So is it a roll and rate then?
It's in that kind of broad category. It's only 6 rounds, and each round you're drawing 2 cards from your own personal deck. You're choosing one to play for an advantage that round, one to play as a scoring card, and then there's one global card that everyone gains like workers and resources from. And then you're using those workers and resources to take actions and fill off things on your sheets. Yeah, there's 2 big sheets as well.
Oh, so it's like a draw and write then. A draw and write, and you make decisions. Oh, that definitely sounds like it's going to break my brain. I love that. That's great. That's so cool. I'm so excited about it. And that one, I think, is when will that one be out for people that are pre-ordering it?
We are hopeful that it will be out for retail in April, but still trying to get all the ships moving from China at this point. So we'll see.
Uh-oh, did we lose her? Amanda?
All right. Well, I'm here. Yes, I'm here. That's cool. We'll have to wait and see about how soon it can be done then. But everyone should go check it out and pre-order it. And I also would like to open up the floor to some questions now, because that's what I had to ask. So Desiree, are there people that have some questions for us as well?
There were a few questions, so let's see. So you had mentioned, Shem, that you play a few instruments. Someone did ask for playing bass. Do you like to slap the bass?
I don't. No. Never.
Okay.
Never slap the bass.
All right. And then, so as far as game design, how much of game design is art versus science? Does math or statistics contribute to ensuring balance in a game's scoring, mechanics, etc.? Or is it just a trial and error via repetitive playtesting?
It's both, for sure. I think that's why I like design of games so much, is that it is a good blend of art and maths, which you don't find in many other kind of art forms. but yeah, we definitely crunch the numbers. We use spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. But then there's a lot to be said for actually just playing it and feeling it and making little tweaks based on how it feels. Because even if it is balanced, it might not feel balanced, and then players are affected by that. So things like the cathedral and architects, we knew it was perfectly balanced and that everything added up, but then people weren't feeling the desire to use it for whatever reason. So we added these reward cards. So whenever you go up the cathedral, you get to flip a card and see something. So it feels kind of more exciting. And then we just tweaked the numbers a bit to make it still balanced at that point. So there's always both things that are important. Test it and also, test it and feel it out, and also use numbers and all that math fun stuff.
That's a good answer. Yeah, it's definitely, I feel like that's so hard to like imagine too, to be like, we need to look at this and then we need to look at this. And also knowing where to go when you need to fix some of those problems.
Yeah, it's interesting. The good fun part with working with Sam McDonald is we can bounce back, I guess, our theories or our logic for why we think something should be a certain way, because both Sam and I are, I guess you'd say, math nerds. So we love numbers and how things add up and work together. So he often will put forward a thing and I'll say, I don't quite understand your logic. Then he might explain it further. I'm like, I see what you're saying. I see why this will work. And
yeah. Do you prefer co-designing, or do you like to do like a little bit of co-design, a little bit of solo stuff, or what's your opinion on that?
Doing both is definitely fun. Having a co-designer, especially Sam, is so much fun because we can constantly bounce back ideas. We're not kind of stuck in your own brain trying to find a solution. We can just, like, even now I've got messages sitting there on Facebook from him asking about stuff. Nice. But then doing solo can be kind of for me at this point in where I'm at as a designer, for me it's like, it's reminding myself that I can design and I can still make games. That's kind of a good way for me to keep that exercise going from like start to finish on designing a game. So
yeah,
I like both. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's really cool. That's having those two perspectives. It's so interesting to hear when people prefer one or the other, or people that are just like, I like to like feel it all out. It all feels good. Yeah. Back to you, Desiree.
All right. So let's see. Why Raiders of Scythia? What was the thought process behind re-implementing the North Sea to that?
So the inspiration for that came from seeing like 5 versions of Pandemic on my shelf and wondering, why do I keep buying different versions of Pandemic and still enjoying them all and still enjoying the original? So that's kind of got me thinking about that. And I think at that point, I knew that by the time I could develop something, Raiders would be 5 years old. So I'd learned a lot in 5 years since then as a designer. So it was my chance to kind of go back to this popular design, probably, I guess my biggest game really, as far as like how many people have played it and enjoyed it. So for me, it's going back to this design and adding in what I've learned and making a better version of it. Yeah.
Sounds pretty good.
Awesome. For adults, many games have bad guy or criminal themes, if you will. Is there a positive type theme you have played with?
Positive type theme. There's lots of positive type themes, but what have I done in the past? I'm trying to think back to all the games. I think it's quite funny. I quite enjoy conflict in games, not mechanically, but thematically, just because it's like, I think that's why we like superhero movies and we like that kind of stuff. It's like conquering the bad things, but we do have a lot of criminal kind of stuff in the West Kingdom, but that's kind of a running theme. It's like we want that corruption and the virtue, kind of the push and pull of what path will you take as a player. We are doing, with the South, we're doing a much more positive spin, I guess. There's no virtue, there's no corruption, there's no criminals. So you can look forward to that, I guess.
There you go.
Well, that was a great question then. We got to figure out a little more. So for playtesters, do you prefer quick players to get through the game quicker or a player who picks the game apart?
Without sounding too harsh, we don't really care. If people are willing to play our games, then that's fantastic. And often, we will take more from the playtest of what we observe them doing than what they actually say back to us. But then they often have great feedback as well. So we do most of our playtesting with just us, me and Sam, and then we'll open up to our local friends and then eventually do some blind playtesting to those just to test the rulebook. But most of our testing's actually just us playing the game. So, yeah.
Nice.
Awesome. And then you had mentioned that you're not necessarily a history buff, but do you find yourself watching things for inspiration, like history movies or historical dramas or anything like that?
Yep. So I just finished Barbarian show on Netflix. That's quite interesting. And obviously watched all the Vikings ones and Last Kingdom and that kind of stuff. I grew up playing lots of Age of Empires 2 on PC, so it's quite funny when we do the new trilogy. I always go and start playing that particular that culture, that race, whatever you want to call it, that kingdom, like
But like age.
yeah. So like when we were focusing on the West Kingdom, I was like always playing as the Franks constantly, like and fighting off the Britons and stuff. So whereas I used to always play as the Vikings constantly. So that's kind of like go-to to like, I guess, get a bit immersed in it a little bit in that particular civilization. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. So I enjoy that setting pretty much in any format, movies or TV shows. But yeah, it's just fun.
It's so funny because I love that you say that you're like, I don't really like history, but then you're talking about all these things, and I'm like, I feel like you secretly like history, Shem, but maybe just not like the textbook, like blah blah blah.
I'm probably just too lazy to actually do the work, but I did history when I was in high school and that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, if it's fun, maybe if it's fun work, if it's interactive and like creative and fun, that's the history. Sure. Yeah.
So let's see. My parents in their 70s love the West Kingdom series. Is there any consideration in design for easy to see or read?
Yeah, that's tricky because we like to put a lot of stuff on our cards. So I had one player sit down to play Raiders of Scythia. He would have been probably in his probably early 70s maybe. And he had to just say, I'm sorry, I can't play this because I can't read the cards. So that's hard. And it's like, I guess I've kind of messed up a bit there, but there's only so much you can put on a card and without the font being too small, too big. So we do our best to try and like optimize the card fonts and things and make sure they're not too scripty or blurry and that kind of stuff. But there's always going to be someone who unfortunately has a challenge with either color deficiencies or short-sightedness or whatever might be affecting them. But yeah, we definitely consider it. But yeah.
Awesome. How did you decide the mechanics concept for the game? Point salad, people placement, deck building, etc. And did it start with theme before mechanics or mechanics before theme?
So for the West Kingdom ones, it's usually like we have the setting already there, so we know it's going to be in old France. And then it's kind of figuring out the story, I guess. So with architects, Sam actually approached me with that design originally before I even had the idea of doing a West Kingdom, but didn't actually have any games designed for it. And that game was all about building buildings. So Sam actually had that concept early on. It was very kind of Citadels kind of vibe. And then we grew it into what it is now. So I guess that was more kind of theme, but more mechanics. With Paladins, I had that word for the title before we even started Architects. So I knew there was going to be a game called Paladins because it's a cool word. So then designing where to kind of think what would that game be about and kind of grew it from that point. With Viscounts, that was a weird one because we were like, what happens next in the king? You built it up, you've defended it. What happens next? Without doing the whole let's become the king kind of story that's been done 1,000 times. So we tried to do something a bit different, but with that one, it was very much me saying to Sam, I don't usually like deck building games. So it was like a challenge for us to make a deck building game that we both enjoy. So that was, I guess, a mechanical challenge, I guess, was the kind of the core that started Viscounts. Yeah. So it's always different, I guess.
Perfect. That sounds really cool. You're making me like really want to play Viscounts.
I love that game.
Yeah.
Cool.
Who does most of your game development for you?
Me and Sam. We do it all, yes. Yeah, so I mean, early on, like with Architects, it was very much kind of Sam brought this idea, and then I kind of coached him through how to develop it, and obviously help design it as well. And then from Paladins onwards, all the games we've worked together it's just us from the beginning. So we do all the design, all the development right through. Yeah.
Awesome.
And you may have said this earlier, Shem, but how did you and Sam meet again? Or have you always known each other?
So I met him when he was probably like 17. I would have been in my late mid-20s. And it was to be in a band together. So
yeah, so it was through music that you met.
Yeah.
That's
so he's
so
a drummer. Cool. I was a guitarist. We played in a band for 5 years. And then I think it was like a year or two after that, he approached me going, "Hey, I've got this idea for a game. Can you look at it?" And that's kind of where it started from. Yeah,
that's so awesome. What was your band called?
Swifts and Sparrows. We're kind of a thricey Thursday kind of style, post rock kind of band. Yeah.
That's so cool. That's so awesome. I love that. I love that this other creative thing like brought you together, and then you just like took that creativity and did something different with it. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's how I knew it'd work as well, because we've been writing songs for 5 years, me and Sam. So I knew that we could work well together and take feedback from each other well. So
yeah. Writing songs with people is like, if you can do that, I feel like there's almost like nothing you can do if you're really good at songwriting with someone. Yeah,
because it's a lot more personal when you're writing songs than it is making games. Yeah.
Yeah. And you need to like be on the same like wavelength, but then also know when to be like, no, and like listen to each other in a way that is beyond, I think, what most people do in their daily life. So yeah. That's cool. Sorry, back to you, Desiree.
That's okay. So let's see. Would a music-themed game ever happen?
Not for me, probably. They do work. I mean, I've definitely seen some good ones, but it's quite weird. Like I enjoy watching sports. I enjoy listening to music, but I would never design a game in that kind of vibe because it doesn't appeal to me thematically, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it would. I have no idea. I haven't played the game yet that really got me hooked on a music game, but I just did a little plug. We had a designer kind of getaway recently in New Zealand. And I didn't get to play it, but there was a designer there. She bought a game that's called Ovation, which is about, it's, I think from memory, it's about you kind of like putting on performances in a classical sense, getting people to come to your shows and that kind of stuff. So, and what I really liked about it had each player had a little board, which had like a keyboard, which from what I could see acted a bit like the resource board in Tapestry. So you're moving your resources along this board, but the board itself was a keyboard or a piano. So that was quite cool. Yeah, from a visual point of view. So who knows? Look out for that one, maybe.
Yeah.
Let's see. We have a fun fact. The artists of Hadrian's Wall and Raiders of Scythia did their album art. Oh, yep, that's pretty cool.
Oh. That's my big brother. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Well, hello and welcome for joining. Or welcome and thank you for joining us.
I feel like it's such a small world, and you're like gaming community. It's all like people That's so cool. It's so nice.
We've got some friends that like one of my friends. He used to buy all our t-shirts. We did that. He used to buy all my music. We did that. Now he's buying all my games. We're doing that. So
that's so nice.
A lot of crossover.
I love that. Yeah, that's so awesome. It's so cool when you can make stuff like that though, and it's like with your friends, and then you're just like, this is like it's almost like as well when you do creative projects with friends in a way, although it's still work, you're like, it's kind of like an excuse for me to like just see you more, which like is nice. Yeah.
Totally.
So someone is asking, is there a video of play for Hadrian's Wall? I believe there might be a few out there.
Yeah, there's a few. You just on YouTube, or you can find them on our pre-order site. There's a bunch listed there. So a few playthroughs. There's a full rules teach from Maple University. And then a couple of review videos as well.
All right. So any plans to have, I believe it's the world of, so it's WOH. I don't know if they're saying the world of and Hadrian's.
Works of Wonder, probably.
Crossovers.
WOH.
Yeah. So crossover somehow into the West Kingdom. You can have the idea. LOL. I'm not sure which game they're referencing, but I'm wondering if they're talking about Hadrian's.
I'm not sure.
Maybe.
Let's see. Any chance?
If that is the question, the answer is no. All the ones that have different art will stay separate. Yeah.
Is there any chance for a dexterity game set in the West Kingdom? Oh.
No.
Do you have any interest in ever making a dexterity game, Shem?
Maybe as a designer, but for at least for our publishing brand, we're very much like, we know who we are now. We do middle to heavyweight Euro games. So
you personally might do a dexterity game, but it wouldn't be within one of these worlds, probably.
Yeah, and that's why you see like games like Noctiluca and Shelfie Stacker that I've designed that don't really fit the Garphill Games brand. So I still like making other kind of games as well.
Yeah. I feel like I would totally be interested though in a trilogy of games that was all dexterities. Something where like you could put them together too and you like make some sort of something. I don't know. That's an idea for someone out there that wants to do that if you're watching.
All right, let's see. For playing Viscounts, do you have a preferred or favored strategy? Ooh, that's a good question.
I enjoy doing the cleric strategy probably most, I think, because I like set collection. But no, I enjoy all of them. I know that Sam McDonald loves the merchant strategy, as we call it, where you get lots of cards in your deck that have all the other money bags. So you're not really focused on one of the three things. You just collect tons of resources and then just like hit them really hard, really fast. So you might have like 3 guild halls in a row, and then get to the middle of the castle in about 4 turns, or then use those bags to flip lots of debts and deeds. So yeah, I know that's his favorite, but I'm not clever enough to pull that one off. So I just stick to like simple strategies. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's see. I think that might be it for right now.
All right.
Yeah. Yep, that's it right now in chat.
All right. Well, lots of good questions. Yeah, those were great. I feel like it's so interesting when people ask you like what strategies you like, because I'm always thinking people ask designers that, like they're looking for the tips.
The secret.
Yeah, the secrets. Like I feel like most designers' favorite strategies are just like, they're like, I like to do this and it's fun. So that's what I do.
We usually find that like Sam and I get our highest scores in games while we're making the games, and then we get worse and worse as we play the games. So we played a 6-player game of Architects with both expansions to test it out the other week. And of the 6 players, Sam and I had the lowest scores. So we're not very good at our own games eventually. So don't look to us for advice.
Maybe it's just because you're just enjoying the experience of the game at that point. You're like, I just want to try this.
I was trying to win.
Oh, you were? Oh, no.
Yeah.
That is how it goes, though, sometimes. It's like when you play a bunch of games and people say, you must be really good at board games because you play so many. And it's like, no. That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Shem, and chatting with us, especially with all the various time zones we're all in. I hope I'm really excited for Hadrian's Wall and to check that out. So I'm definitely going to be needing to get a copy of that myself because it sounds great. Can you remind us a little bit? Can you just remind us of who you are, what you do, and where we can find you before we let you go today?
So you can find us on like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I think it's always just at Garphill Games. Or you can just search us. You'll find us, garphill.com.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for joining us and for all of these amazing questions. You all have so many good questions, and I'm jealous of you. Thank you for asking them. And before we head out, just a quick little reminder. So Hadrian's Wall is now available for pre-order. You can check it out on our site, Renegade Game Studios. So go there, pre-order it, and get ready to like get super crunchy and in there, because I'm super excited to start designing this stuff and mapping it out with my big sheets. It's going to be great. Also, just a quick reminder, the Alice is Missing RPG is out now, and the Altered Carbon RPG is now available for pre-order. Do not miss out on these RPGs. They are both amazing. They're both very different, and they're both great. And of course, we have the Duel of Wands Kids on Brooms card game available. That game is designed by Luke Minch and Doug Lewandowski with art by Heather Vaughn. It's beautiful. It's awesome. It's a standalone 2-player game, or you can play it with the RPG. And then we've also got awesome content coming your way on Twitch, on YouTube. Make sure you check in with us on Twitch for our streaming schedule and stay up to date with that. And before we go, one more time, that code word for you for the Viscounts of West Kingdom giveaway today is Valhalla. So you can get that link from Desiree in the chat, and that is the word you want to enter. All right, friends. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Shem, for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you so much, Desiree, for producing. Always amazing. And until next time, I will see you for the next Renegade Society radio show. And till next time, make sure you play your game.